Hey, what's up, everybody? Chad Calek here, and welcome back to the In a Crowded Room podcast for a very special episode in which I am going to be making an announcement in just a few minutes. An announcement that is literally 20 years in the making. An announcement that I believed one day I would be able to make. But man, believe me when I tell you, 20 years ago, it was definitely a dream that seemed really far away. But before we get to what that announcement is, I want to give you a little math so you understand, I guess, kind of why this is such a big announcement. When it comes to independent films, there's an estimated 10,000 films a year that are made in the United States. In fact, IMDb says that since 1900, there's been an average of 2,500 films per year that have been made by either major studios or independent artists. Now that number has actually swelled and gotten larger and larger every year with the advancement of technology and the ability for people, for a few $1,000s to be able to buy a camera that can shoot, really high-end, high-quality 4K video, and with, something as simple as iMovie, could make a film. Now, when we say feature film, what we're talking about is something that's greater than 50 minutes, something that has a budget of at least $10,000, and something that is a 3-act format, meaning that there's a full story start to finish. That's the standard by which a film is judged. Of those 10,000 films that were made this year, or let's say 2019, because again, the average is 2,500 a year since 1900, but that bottom end has come up dramatically again because of the advancement of technology and how many films people are making now compared to how many films they were making even 10 years ago. So roughly 10,000 films are made. Of those 10,000, just under 600 will receive a distribution deal, a single deal. And what I mean by a distribution deal is a company that will make sure that your film is released anywhere that films are released. Right now, worldwide, there's a total of 300 different platforms for distribution. And that could range from, Showtime, Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, right down to if you ever flew on a plane and you have the option to watch a movie, that's a company called Red. That company distributes films through airlines, right down to Xbox, PlayStation. There are so many different ways to consume movies now. You can see it through cable providers that are online. MeFilo is one of them. AT&T has their own, Netflix kind of version. There's Sling Blade. There's so many of them. And what a distributor does is they make sure that you have your piece of real estate. They take your title and they make sure it's everywhere. Okay? Everywhere. Now, when I first started making films, my very first film, The Private Public, back in the day, one thing that has not changed since 1998, when I first started writing the script to The Private Public, and a lot of things have changed, and we'll go over that. But the one thing that hasn't changed is when someone says an independent film, what does that mean, independent? What that means is you don't have a distributor. So you chose the content or created it, meaning the script, or the thing you were going to document if you're making a documentary, and you financed it or you got investment, and then once the film was complete, Your job was to go out and find a distributor that felt your work was worthy of a distribution deal. And usually what that comes down to is, do you have a big star in your movie? Is it something socially that's going to connect? And does the distributor want to basically dedicate their assets to getting your movie out into the public, in which the distributor may or may not spend X amount of dollars promoting it or making sure that it's out there. But you have to, get them to believe that your film is worth the time, energy, effort, and money. And you have to get them to believe that they will make money by supporting you. Now, this is very difficult for many, many reasons. Most distributors have, a brand or an angle, something that they're doing, that they believe in, some kind of genre of film that they, focus on, that they've had results in. And what you're doing without having contact with any of these distributors is you're just creating something that you believe in with the hope that they're going to see it and go, oh, this thing that you've done is better or more valuable than the projects that we as a company chose to create, to distribute. And we think it's so good that, again, we're going to take on your project as a partner. We're going to give you distribution. And, more than likely ahead of film projects that they've thought about and that they wanted to produce and put out there. And, we're going to get behind it. That's an extremely difficult process. It's ever present. It is why 95.7% of all independent films made will not receive a distribution deal. 95.7. And what's crazy is that number has actually increased. 10 years ago, less than 1%, 0.7. 0.7% of all independent films 10 years ago, 0.7% got a distribution deal. Today, it's 4.3% roughly. So that's when I say 10,000 films have been made and just under 6% got a deal. It's not exact, because if it was exact 10,000, 6% of that is 600. But roughly 10,000 films are made, and roughly just under 600 films, received a distribution deal. Now, on all of my films that I've ever made, I've received 2 formal distribution agreements. My very first film that I ever made, The Private Public, we signed a deal with Showtime. Now, after we finished the film, and this was an incredible process of making this movie, which I'll share some stories with you here shortly. But after, finishing the creation of The Private Public, we spent 3 years doing the film festival circuit, which in a nutshell, I can tell you guys, that's the biggest ripoff in the world. The belief that you're going to go to a film festival and play a movie and some distributors just going to see it, and in their seat, they're going to be so excited that on the spot, they're going to buy your movie. When you heard those stories, they were always staged. They always were. It was to get other people to send their films in for consideration, only to be turned down. All film festivals, all of them, they make their money by submission fees. So they always handcraft an amazing story of, for example, like when the Blair Witch, they said it got signed at Sundance for $500,000. It played there, and, Miramax was so excited that they just had to buy it on the spot. And I'm not sure if it was Miramax or not, but whoever the distributor was, they had to buy it on the spot, and they cut a deal right there for $500,000. Everyone was like, oh my God, that's so amazing. And then what you do is you get all these filmmakers that made films, and they're all sending their films into Sundance next year, and it's a $450 submission fee that you do not get your money back if they decline you for the festival. So they don't even have to play your film, okay? They can just say, we received it, didn't like it, thanks for submitting, and they keep your $450. That is how it works. It is ridiculous. So, of course, there's always these kind of fabled, made-up stories. And we learned all this the hard way. I learned this by paying submission fee after submission fee and going to different festivals. And, you know, I remember, gosh, the Private Public played at this film festival in Pennsylvania. I can't remember the name of the actual festival right now, but I remember our film, they said, congratulations. You know, we were accepted. And I was like, oh my God. And it was like on a Thursday night, pretty good time too, like Thursday night at like 8 p.m. And, you know, I was like, awesome, this is going to be amazing. Like, people are going to be there. They're going to see the movie. And I was so excited. And I, you know, took all the money I had in my life at that time. And I went there. And the film literally screened for me, the guy running the projector, and some girl who was waiting to see another film and just had nothing better to do and just went to the screening. And I'm like, what is going on? You know, like, why is there like nobody here? And the girl was like, oh, well, this is a newer festival that they're doing. So most people don't even know that it's going on right now. And I'm like, well, what is going on then? You know, why am I here? And, you know, she was like, did you pay your submission fee? And I'm like, yeah. And my submission fee was like, again, like $400. And then once you get accepted, there's like a screening amount that you paid. And then there's like a seating arrangement thing that you paid. So in total, basically, it was like something like $1,400 I ended up paying to have my film screen. And she said, well, just between me, you, and the wall, you know, basically you were taken. And I'm like, what? And she was like, yeah, you know, most of the films that are here, nobody knows who they are. And because it was like the second year of the festival. And they were like, this is only the second year of the festival. So anybody basically who's willing to pay all this, they're giving a screening spot. And I'm like, holy cow, you were kidding me. And I had just heard about the festival for this old website that was called filmfestival.com that listed all the festivals. And that one was close to New York. So I thought this would be great. And basically, yeah, I was just taken. I just kept, you know, paying all the fees they said to pay because I was so excited that someone actually selected us. And when I got there was nobody there. I mean, and this is, you know, so this is the racket. You know, you learn about the business this way. And after 2 years of going to festivals and being turned down like crazy and mailing my film to every single studio there is and having them all turn me down like crazy, eventually, Justin got a hold of some company out of Las Vegas that said, we will represent your film. We have connections, and we will represent the private public if you will let us. And we were like, okay, well, you got to do something, though, man. You got to get us a deal, you know, because we don't have distribution, man, so we're dead in the water. And he was like, no problem. I could pull off a deal. And it turns out that he did have a friend at Showtime who you know, saw the film, actually saw that there were some names in it. There were some guys from the real world in it. Tracy Bingham was in it from Baywatch. You know, it was my first film I ever made. I mean, it was just riddled with problems and a cast that was mixed with very good performances, with just horrible performances, and a director that just destroyed the words I put to a script and created something totally new. And I could go on and on and on and on with the problems here. But basically, this guy said, yeah, we will represent your film and we will go out and get you a deal. And they said, and here's the good thing, the split's 80-20. And I'm going, that's pretty good. Wow. So they're going to do all this work and get us a deal and give us 80%. I said, well, that's totally cool. But then I countered with, you know, 85-15. And then he called me back and said, well, I don't understand. Why would you want to give us 5% more? And I was like, whoa, hold on. So the 80 is you? And he's like, yes, the 80 is me. You're the 20%. I'm going, wow. So we went out, you know, raised this money, made this film, this 3-year process, and fell flat on our ass and couldn't find a distributor, only in the end to sign a deal that, gave this person 80%. Well, they did. He did have a friend at Showtime who watched the film and saw that there were some marketable things there, and they signed a 7-year deal. And basically, it was on. It ran on every different Showtime. It ran for 7 years too, like 3:30 in the morning, every night. A time where nobody would see it, and it was a deal that just annihilated us. I mean, it was a terrible, terrible deal. So that was my first kind of like soiree into the world of distribution. If you don't know your head from your ass, and it was a nightmare. It was scary, and because of that, from that point moving forward, I just always wanted to be purely independent. I wanted to build my own, independent deal. I wanted to build my own independent distribution company. And then I realized that's next to impossible. If you're one person and you're trying to get a film out there to the world and you're just going to sell it through your website, that's very difficult. You got to have some kind of help. But to make a long story short, I eventually wound up with a great team. And that was one of the biggest things is I had, at that time with the private public, I had just gained a manager, but I didn't have, a strong financial partner. I didn't have an agent. I didn't have a sales agent. I didn't have a distribution agent. I didn't have a lawyer. I didn't have any of that stuff. And I had no reputation. I had no name. I had no anything. So by the time American Ghost Hunter came around, I had been on television for several seasons, had been a director and a co-star, had, great partners in Thomas Lee Bottom and Justin, and a great manager in Kurt Smith, and a great sales agent, David Dennerstein, and David put together a tremendous deal for AGH with, at that time, what was a fairly upstart company called Gravitas Ventures. And Gravitas was a distributor that focused primarily on North America. They had 84 different platforms that they distributed to. A few of them were international, a few in the UK and Australia, but primarily, they were North American. And it was the opposite experience of the first one. I would have loved, every filmmaker always wants everybody in the world to, push and promote their film harder. But looking back on it, they did a great job of making sure that the film was available all over the place. You guys saw it was on Hulu. Not only was it on Hulu, AGH ended up being the #1 most watched paranormal documentary of all time on Hulu. But Gravitas also got it, like I said, on Xbox. They got it on PlayStation. They got it on all the on-demand stations. I was just really, impressed by, how many places they got the film. And the deal was really, really good. I'm not going to give you the exact numbers, but it was pretty much the opposite of the first deal I had. And it was a great experience. It was a great experience. And I remember thinking, this is cool. Okay, I'm a little more trusting now. But at that time, this was a huge deal because, again, there's only so many films that can get a distribution deal. And when I first started making films back in the day, I remember having this conversation with Justin, and we used to always talk about how amazing it would be if you owned your own film studio, meaning that you could make films and you could pull the trigger and get it out to the world, like whenever you wanted to. And you had complete creative control. And we used to call that the Beastie Boys deal. We'd be like, wouldn't it be awesome to get a Beastie Boys deal if you were a filmmaker? And the reason we said that is the Beastie Boys were known throughout the music business for having the most artist-friendly record deal that has ever been struck. It was through Capitol Records. Didn't start out that way. The Beastie Boys' first record deal that they ever got was to Def Jam, and it was through Rick Rubin. And, they were taken pretty handily. I mean, they were really fucked over. To the point where, if you remember, the Beastie Boys came out with No Sleep Till Brooklyn, and that whole time period blew up. But during that time period, they were this kind of beer-drinking, debaucherous, marauding group of, New York kids that were, kind of had that punk flavor going on. And the Beastie Boys ended up, when their career was over, being this very political, really, conscious, heavy band or group. But after the whole Beastie Boys No Sleep Till Brooklyn, uh, record deal, they eventually got off that deal and were released. And without any record deal, they moved out to California, took several years off, and ended up making this album with the Crystal Method, those producers in the Crystal Method, called Paul's Boutique. And to this day, many people revere that as the best Beastie Boys album ever made. But it was completely different than, it was intelligent. It was very, these songs had a ton of depth to them. And people saw a very different side to the band. What was amazing is, based on their sales of No Sleep Till Brooklyn, which to this day, No Sleep Till Brooklyn is platinum every year. To this day, the Beastie Boys, every year, No Sleep Till, or Licensed to Ill, that album, is platinum every year. It's still selling. But based on the strength of their album sales, they got a deal with Capitol Records. It was a multi-album deal. I think it was like a seven album deal. And they had full creative control. And whenever they wanted to release their album, they would just let Capitol Records know when they were going to release it, and they would turn it in. There was no conversation of creative. There was no, what do you think, Capitol? Is it good enough for you guys to devote, your assets? I mean, no, it was, here's our album. This is what's up. This is what we're doing. And it kind of set the standard for, what you hope to gain as an artist. Also, their royalties were at that time some of the largest royalties ever paid to an act. I think they were at 22%, which most acts on their first album get between 4 to 11%, meaning for every album sold, they will get 4 cents to 11 cents per album. And that is only after the record company has recouped all of the money they spent on promoting the band. So typically, bands will go out, tour for 2 years, and if their label's pushing them and promoting them, believe it or not, they will end the fiscal year owing the label money. There's a great documentary about this with 30 Seconds to Mars, how, they had the #1 rock album in the world, for over 2 years. And then they came out with their second album. It shot straight to #1 in Billboard. And after a year of touring with that, they still owed their record company like $15 million. They owed the label $15 million. #1 album in the world for years. So that's that Hollywood accounting, So again, the dream scenario, if you're an artist, is to be able to create your own studio. If you're in music, your own label. If you're in film, your own studio. That you have complete and total creative control, and you have a royalty rate that is incredibly in your favor. No less than 75% on each sale. You should, meaning, you the artist, me, if we sell a copy or a rental or a watch or review, 75% of that sale should return to the artist. In a perfect world, it's 80%. In a really perfect world, it's like 85%. But now you're getting into like, Elton John type of numbers. But that was the goal. So you can imagine how, when Justin and I very first wanted to make a film, having never made a film before, how far away the thought and the idea would be that one day I will have my own studio where I can release my movies to the world whenever I choose, and a powerful distributor that will make sure, that I have that, that ability to reach people. So what was really cool is American Ghost Hunter. So we did that one-off deal with American Ghost Hunter, and it did really well. And it did really well consistently. And a lot of that was due to all that touring that we did, which I want to thank you guys so much. We're going to talk about that more. But a lot of it was because we just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And I was so committed that, honestly, guys, I was just proud of my family. I just felt like my family laid it out there, man. And I knew that never had there been a film, whether you liked American Ghost Hunter or did not like it, that was honestly, it was kind of irrelevant to me. What I wanted people to see and what I felt like you could not deny is it was the most honest thing you've ever seen from a family dealing with those issues. Because I know my family, I know my father, I know my mother, I know what we went through to do that. And look, the final 20 minutes of that film, of course I'm biased, but I'm telling you, man, that is it's the most honest footage you're ever going to see, in any kind of reality-based documentary. The situation between my mother and I and my father and just Lorraine and all that shit. I mean, that was as real as it gets, man. And I just felt like American Ghost Hunter, I thought it told a powerful story. And it wasn't even necessarily a paranormal story as much as it was about, if I remove myself from it and I look at it not being me, what I would see is, the paranormal is the background, it's the foundation. But this is a story about a son who is fighting so hard to trust his mother, to just regain trust, and not being able to. It was this very humanistic story, and it was about the struggles that a family goes through when you encounter something as powerful as the paranormal, and the multiple layers that it just takes over your life, and your ability to have normal friends, a normal job, your ability to trust, your ability to have a good night's sleep. It just takes over all of that. The paranormal just destroys it. But at the core of it is this, incredibly unjust betrayal of trust that goes on within a family. And I felt like it was so important for people to see that. Because I know there's a lot of people that deal with it all the time, that don't know there are others who deal with it, that you're not alone, that this happens all the time, and it's very real. I thought it was very important for people to see that, but I also just thought it was very important for people to see that there's resolve, that there's always, I should say, a path to resolve. There's no matter how dark a situation is, there's always a path to resolve. You don't ever just give up. And that's on everything in life. Like, just don't ever just give up, because the game's over when you stop playing it. And that's what I thought American Ghost Hunter, that's what the voice of AGH, spoke to me, and I hope spoke to the audience about, and I believe that it would, is that there is always hope. And if there's hope, then there's a chance. And just don't give up on that, And so we pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed that film so hard as we were, prepping to do A Blood Red Sky, which to this day is my favorite film ever, which we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second too. But anyways, the point being is AGH did really, really well between 2015 when it was released and the end of 2019. And during that time period, the industry continued to change, and DVDs, Blu-rays, like all that stuff, slowly started going by the wayside, and the industry heavily reverted now to digital. Now that made Gravitas much stronger, because that's what they did, is they focused primarily on digital. Now, a year and a half ago, Gravitas was also bought out and merged with a company called Red Arrow Studios, which was another incredibly powerful distributor, specifically internationally. And what that did is it made Gravitas become the number one distributor in the world. Of the 600 films, roughly, that were distributed last year, just under 300 of them were distributed by Gravitas. And now, if you had a distribution deal through Gravitas, you could now reach 1 billion viewers. Let me say that again. If you have a distribution deal through Gravitas, through their 300 distribution platform partnerships, if they release film, they can now reach 1 billion people. Okay. So everybody and their brother, wanted a distribution deal through Gravitas. And obviously they're not going to, do a distribution deal with everybody. I mean, they only have so many people that work at their company, and there's only so many films they could release in a year. And with only releasing 300 in a year, or half the films that are released to the industry, they're going to be very, very selective. Now, the beauty of what like I said, what we had is we got in there early. It was the right timing. We had a great relationship with David. David had a great relationship with Gravitas when they were just coming up. I had an amazing team around me. Thomas and I continued to refine this distribution model as far as touring goes, and we just kept it rolling. I had an amazing group of people that supported me with the creation of A Blood Red Sky. Susan and Mick, were incredible. I'm sorry, Susan and Earl Mick were incredible, and Natalie Giles and Bob and Sharon. This incredible group of people came together and said, I love this idea that you have for A Blood Red Sky. And then, as we got further down the road, Thomas also came in and was there for, finishing funds for the film, and to also tour with that as well. And all this touring kept building this story of what we were doing. And, you don't realize it when you're in the middle of it, but people were paying attention. And, what we were doing was unique. And, again, it was just something nobody else was doing. So during this time period of this window, Gravitas has now become the number one distributor in the world. Everybody wants to deal with them. And I've done, one film with them, hoping that I could eventually maybe do another deal with them. But based off the strength of everything that we created over the last 4 years as well, putting out multiple pictures from A Blood Red Sky, and then, going on the most extensive tour that we've ever done, which was the most important tour that we've ever done with Sir No Face. We had a breakthrough into mainstream media, and that was a huge thing for us because it really got our name out there. And as you guys know, my struggle, and the one thing I wanted to do more than anything else with the Sir No Face trilogy, was to get it out there to the world. And there are a few places you can go to that are fairly easy, but they don't represent full-on distribution deals. Like, you can release, if anybody can release a film on Vimeo, and it's a killer platform, and it pays the artist like 90%, and it's available in 150 different countries, and it's an incredible player. It's like, an HD player, but it's like one place. And if you don't have a membership there, and if you don't know to look there, you're never even going to know the film's going to be there. And they also don't do a good job of actually promoting each new title. They're just like a pass-through. So while I was able to put Sir No Face out on, like Vimeo, and it was out on Amazon for a minute, we weren't able to get the story out there like we should have through distribution, but we did get it out there through the press and the media. And that really increased our awareness as well. And Gravitas became very aware of what we were doing as well, in which they eventually contacted us and said, well, we want to do a deal, for Sir No Face. And this led to a larger discussion. And over the last year, there's been a lot of back and forth until finally, in the midst of all this madness, guys, this is how crazy life is. So we're talking back and forth, with Gravitas, and then March 15th hits, and the COVID hits, and, which leads into panic and riots and looting and just madness. And the whole time I'm just going, oh my God, like, please don't let this go away. But thankfully, at the same time, while all that was going on, we received something that, I still can't even believe I can say it right now. It's just amazing. But we received a 5-picture offer for all of my paranormal features, the full catalog, plus an offer for future, to be named films. So after going back and forth, David was able to close the deal, and it's not only a 5-picture deal, but it's full creative control. We have complete creative control. They are going to be re-releasing American Ghost Hunter, and for the first time ever, they're going to be releasing A Blood Red Sky to over 300 outlets, cable channel, like you name it. It's probably going to be available in the UK. Finally, they're going to be releasing Sir No Face. Also, they are going to be releasing Two-Face the Grey, and also they're going to be releasing Phantom Rider. Worldwide, Craig's story will finally be heard and seen by the masses. This is, my hands are even shaking right now announcing it, because it's just like, this is what you set out and pray one day you can do. Like, this was the deal. Like, back in the day, you just go, God, wouldn't that be amazing one day if we could just make our movies and just, we're the distributor, we just release them. And although we're not the distributor, Gravitas is now our exclusive distributor, which means that AGH Television no longer exists, because AGH Television has now been transformed into AGH Films. We are doing a rebrand because our little independent production house has now become our independent film studio, as we can now make our films and release them to 1 billion people. This also means that there will be no more of this Chad makes a film and then we're going to tour it for a little bit, but it might be a year or two before the film actually just comes out, because we're trying to find distribute. Like, it's all settled. From now on, beyond these 5 films, the future films that I make, you guys will know when the release date's going to be before we ever announce, the completion of the film. And it'll obviously, be handled by Gravitas, who, you name it, it will be available. Every known distribution outlet that you can think of, it's going to be available. So we're told tentatively right now that all 5 of these films are going to be released in September. Now, this is tentative right now because this deal just got done literally like a couple days ago. But I'll know more soon, and I will let you guys know. But what I do know, and this affects a lot of stuff that we have going on. But first of all, let me just say this. Isn't that fucking awesome? How exciting is that, I mean, that's just, it's amazing. And I just I'm going to get into thanking individuals here, because it's worth it, and we should do that. But just everybody in general, anybody who has ever supported us, congrats to you. Congrats to all of us, For those that love our brand of films, you played a massive role in making sure that the world is now going to be able to see our brand of documentary. So that's incredibly exciting. I just want you to all know how much that means to me and to everybody on my team. And, God is love. If you can dream it, you can achieve it. And like I said in my post yesterday, you get some people in a room that believe in something, magic can happen. And, for Justin and I, who sat down, a couple of kids from a town of 330 people in Iowa, to get to the point where, you're in partnership with the largest #1 distributor on planet Earth, and you just got a 5-picture deal. It's crazy. It's crazy, man. It is crazy. So as wild as it is to say that we got our Beastie Boys deal, it's official, man. We got our Beastie Boys deal, which blows my mind, guys. Blows my mind. but let's talk about what it affects, because it affects everything. First off, the biggest thing that it affects, and everybody please pay attention to this, between now and next Sunday, that is all the time that you have to watch American Ghost Hunter, A Blood Red Sky, Sir No Face, Two-Face the Grey, and Phantom Rider. Because as of next Sunday, we have to take those films off of our website and off of Vimeo, because they will be under the complete control of Gravitas, and they will not come back out until the films are formally re-released by Gravitas. So that means if you haven't seen American Ghost Hunter, A Blood Red Sky, Sir No Face, Two-Face the Grey, or Phantom Rider on Vimeo or through any other format that they're available, you need to take, pick a time in the next 7 days and knock it out, or else, you're going to be waiting until September. Now, in regard to the DVD for Phantom Rider, so everybody understands the process and the absolute madness that went down. So as you guys know, March 15th was the online release date for Phantom Rider. That same day, they received the check to make the DVDs. Our DVD manufacturer did. No sooner than them receiving the check did the state, install the statewide mandatory, no work order, basically, where if you weren't dubbed an essential service, you had to stop working. Our DVD distributor, I guess DVD distribution is not an essential business in California, so they were shut down. They were actually shut down until what was supposed to be June 3rd. Now, you guys know what happened in June 3rd. The riots broke out, and I don't know if people understood how bad this was. But if you look on the screen right now, I'm going to show you, this is just the list of businesses, just the list of businesses in Santa Monica that were destroyed from looting and fires and it was bad. My neighborhood still, if you drive through Santa Monica right now, you see nothing but boarded up businesses. I think most people are waiting on their insurance claims. But things got really bad here for a couple of weeks, right down to the point where one night, this is a true story, I had the 3 a.m. watch over our courtyard to make sure everybody in our building could sleep, because there were gunshots going off here, there were tear gas canisters flying off, there was absolute madness in my neighborhood. I am a block away from First Street, which is 2 blocks away from 3rd Street. That's all the promenade. That's where all that went down. So our DVD distributor is in Santa Monica. And they have 2 businesses. They have one in Santa Monica, and then they have one just off the 405. Well, what's crazy is Santa Monica first gets hit, and I'm thinking, well, okay, we'll be all good. Things should be cool. And then on the 7th, massive fires break out along the 405, right where they're at. So they were completely shut down until last Thursday, in which I'm told that as of today, they are supposedly beginning with our pressing of our DVDs for Phantom Rider. Everybody who has ordered the DVD to Phantom Rider, you will receive it. This deal with Gravitas does not take that away from you whatsoever. It's coming to you. That purchase was made in advance, so you're all good with that. Also, when you do get it, please note there is an extra scene in there, a really cool extra scene, and there is the completed credits at the end, in which there's another little secretive scene there as well too. So it is a slightly different version too. That will be coming to you. For those of you that have ordered the online version of Phantom Rider, although I will not be offering it after next Sunday on Vimeo, I do have a way to set it up where those of you who have already purchased it, I do have a way where your password will allow you to keep watching Phantom Rider online whenever you choose, and the same thing with Sir No Face and Two Face, your password will still allow you to watch them online privately without them being offered by Vimeo on demand. Now, in regard to 74 minutes, this is really actually kind of cool and exciting for you guys how this all went down. If you remember, March was going to be, my month to really knock this film out and get it done and get it ready to go by a mid-April release. Well, if you remember, right after March 14th, if you were following me, at the end of March, I got COVID-19. And yeah, it sucked. Did I feel like I was going to die from it? No. Was it a bad sickness? Yes. But during that time period, the worst thing about it was I had to quarantine in my bedroom for 15 days, which was not fun. But it happened. And the same thing, the following week after March 15th, I think it was the 23rd, was Laura's last day at school. So Laura had to come home, and we don't have a really big place. It's just Santa Monica living. It's just how it works around here. Nobody has like a massive 3-bedroom, 2-story house. We have basically a 1.5 bath little apartment townhome is like, our living quarters, which is plenty for her and I, but it's not plenty when you're like, okay, now we're setting up a complete edit bay, but now she has to set up a video village to teach school from home. And I was like, okay, so how is this going to work in regard to editing? So right when my quarantine gets over, 2 weeks, and this is like halfway into April, that's right when Laura is setting up, all her little video village office for all her kids to teach. And then on the 21st, unfortunately, April 21st, my father passes away. So things were just, getting more and more horrible, in a row. And once I kind of wrapped my head around, his situation and what needed to occur, there's a whole list of things that follow after somebody passes away, which thank God, I had my brother there and my aunt, to handle, 99% of this stuff, because I was, from being sick and being back up and dealing with the situation, I just wasn't in a very helpful place. But, I guess my point being is, April was a wash because I couldn't even, even if I was emotionally in a place where I could work on the film, Laura has to teach. Like, I can't tell her no. I can't say, these kids can't have an education. I got to edit. So it really became a really tough situation. And in order for me to get back onto it and really finish things up, because there is no external edit bay that I can go to now, the city's shut down. What needed to happen was her school needed to end so I could have time like right now where I could have silence and I could be able to work, so I could be able to edit 74 minutes. Now, the deal that we have with Gravitas, so how does it affect 74 minutes? Well, the 5-picture deal is one thing, but I have an existing deal to release films through them, future films as well. So I am going to be releasing 74 minutes through Gravitas as well. But what that means is, those of you that have pre-ordered the DVD to 74 minutes or the Vimeo version, I am allowed to make sure you get your DVD and make sure you could watch it online before I execute the deal with Gravitas. So what that means is, you guys that have pre-ordered, everybody who's pre-ordered 74 minutes on DVD and digital, you will get it what will amount to like 4 months before it's released. Because once I do a deal with Gravitas for a film, the earliest that it could come out is 90 days after, pushing the button and saying, we want to do this deal. So at the end of next month, at the end of July, I'm planning on having 74 minutes done, in which I'm going to begin the process of releasing the film through Gravitas, which the earliest that it would be available would be either at the end of October or possibly November through Gravitas. But it would be available in August for all of you that have pre-ordered it. For those of you that have pre-ordered, I'm saying you win. And this is a great thing for you because you will get to see it well in advance of anybody else who has not pre-ordered. And for those of you that have stood by me this whole time, thank you so much in advance for your support. Obviously nobody can predict COVID-19 and the madness that has ensued. Nobody can predict the filmmaker living in the most hard-hit neighborhood when it comes to looting and rioting. No one could predict getting sick. No one could predict my father passing away. No one could predict Laura having to take over our place to teach school. These are things that happen in life. And I am an independent filmmaker. I make the films myself, all aspects of them. When it comes to post-production and all that stuff. So these things obviously affect me. Unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately because it is fortunately, but, we don't have, there's not like some 20-person staff. We can go, oh, well, things got tough, so let's just throw money at it and get a bunch of other filmmakers to jump in. No, it's got to have my love, it's got to have my vision, and the film is very close to being completed. It's very, very good. For those of you that love the paranormal, you're going to be blown away. It's really cool to see the progression over the years and to kind of see how technology increased and how these increases affected my overall vision. I think it's really cool. And it's going to be one of the funnest, when 74 Minutes is finally released, it's going to be incredibly fun, I think, for me, because it's such an open and welcoming book to your input. I'm daring, all of you on each of these, clips. I'm throwing down the gauntlet in a friendly capacity, of course, and I'm daring you to come up with an answer or a solution for these things that I haven't seen and come up with. It is a very much an invitation into my body of work to see if perhaps you can find an answer that we didn't have, and that's exciting to me. That's not scary. And of course, if you just like evidence, it is really cool to see this much in one film. And it really does make an incredibly strong argument for the existence of ghosts. And, no paranormal documentary has ever done that in this fashion, where they really release a body of work and they invite the public, to basically, dig into it, tell me where I was wrong, or if you agree with it, great, say why. And at the very end of the film, honestly, there's a lot of things and a lot of theories that I've developed over the years that I'm super excited to get out there and to get people talking about them, because the one thing the paranormal field needs more than anything else is advancement. It's so stale, it's ridiculous, and we have to have new thoughts and ideas, and we got to go to new places, and we have to, new water. We just have to, we have to tread on, man. So, anyways, for those of you that have pre-ordered, you are in luck. You will be receiving the film 3 to 4 months before the general public, because again, that deal will be done through Gravitas. And the last thing I want to say really quickly is I am just super excited that A Blood Red Sky is finally going to get its due. That is my favorite film that I have ever made. If you have not seen it, guys, please, watch it in the next 7 days before it's taken down, so you don't gotta wait, until September. Watch A Blood Red Sky. If you don't know the premise of it, essentially we went to Chillingham Castle to challenge the reality or the possibility, I should say, the legitimacy of psychokinetic ability. Is psychokinetic ability, is the mind powerful enough to actually affect things in our reality? We're talking about mind over matter. Is psychokinetic ability real? And we put it to the test through a lot of steps and processes, some legal, some controversial, possibly illegal. And the result was just shocking. It was shocking what occurred at the end of the film, and the way the film was set up and the way it breaks down. It just really, it came out, it's special to me. It's a special film that I think has never really got its due as far as distribution goes, and it's never gotten the eyes on it that it deserves to get on it, and it finally will, and I'm so excited about that. For those of you that have seen it, it's funny, almost everybody I know that has seen A Blood Red Sky, when I see them on tour, they always identify that as their favorite film as well, too. So I know it's not just me that feels that way. I know people that are so into it, they still have a Blood Red Sky t-shirts that they still wear to this day because they love the concept behind it. So I invite you all to take a look at that before next Sunday comes and before it's removed from Vimeo On Demand and the places that it's available. So that's a big change that is going to happen. And really quickly, while we're on updates, just because I want to get through these, when it comes to events, in the next week and a half, 2 weeks, I'm going to have the new date for the Texas event. I am talking to the owner, and we're just making sure that we're in compliance with everything, because I don't know if you guys know or not, the Texas COVID-19 cases are spiking again. And before we drop another date, there's people that are flying in from all over the place for that. And I just want to make sure that they're not going to buy tickets that they didn't have to cancel. So hang tight with me on that. We're going to have an update real soon for the July 10th through the 12th. Return to AGH event in Omaha, in my hometown, in Malvern Manor. That is going down. That is happening. So if you got your tickets to that event, tomorrow you're going to receive all the details. The hotel, I know everybody's waiting for that. I've spoken to Josh at the Malvern Manor. They're excited to have us. They can't wait. And yeah, we're just figuring out the process too, because for those of you that are concerned with COVID-19, we're going to have a check-in process that takes care of you. If you want to wear your mask the whole time, if you want to do social distancing, we're going to have basically two groups. We're going to have a group that abides by that, and if you don't care about it and it's not required legally, and then you don't have to. We'll have a second process for that too. So we're making sure that everybody's taken care of, and all the information you will receive in an email tomorrow. For the Catalina event coming up here in September, it's a ways away, so just give us some time. Let's see how things play out, with the virus, and give me at least 2 or 3 weeks to get closer to make sure that I have a handle on what is currently going on. So those are the updates with the actual the DVDs and the pre-orders and the events. Oh, the last thing I will say too is there was also additional DVDs ordered for Sir No Face, and also I got literally 25. That's all I got. 25 more extra Blood Red Sky DVDs because I know we've had a few orders of those in the last couple of weeks, in which we were completely out. So if you ordered, Sir No Face, and you haven't received, any kind of return email or anything, or a Blood Red Sky, those are all being produced at the same time that Phantom Rider is, which started today. So hang tight, and those will be sent out to you very soon. And again, to all of you, my incredible friends, family, fans, and supporters, everybody out there who has, came to a live show, purchased a DVD, got an online rental, just in general, just spread the word. Just, you guys have always stuck with me and us in everything that we've done. And I know it's cliche to say we have the best fans in the world, but I really mean that, man. I really, really do. This deal represents much more than anything that I ever could have done alone. I have an amazing team, which I'll talk about in a second, but through their support, we've created something that I believe is really special. And this deal is, representative of you and your ability to make noise and, to support us and to come out and see us and to get other people interested. There's just been so many of you that I've gotten to know over the years that have, really, went above and beyond the call to, spread the word. Paula Garlack, I love you so much, sweetheart. You are an amazing friend and fan and supporter. April Morgano, Jackie Belton. There's so many. I could go down the list forever. Everybody who comes to our events, the event gang, Wilcox, love you, brother, man. I mean, there's so many, and I'm not, I could be here all day naming names. So just know, if I didn't just say your name, just know how much I care and how much, I love you guys and how much your support means. To my team, the reason I always, whenever I do any kind of public speaking events, I always try to as much as I can, mention and include, the people that are a part of my team. And it's because, the way things are built, the business and the way marketing goes and the way, promotion goes is, if you're the artist, you're the face on the box, and that's, in a weird way, it's very unfair that it's like that. I mean, I understand why it's like that, because you have to focus on something when you're promoting something, and usually you have a limited window. So they like to choose one person to focus in on. But it really isn't fair, because there's such a team. Like, everything we do is a team effort, and each person has their role. And, I get emails all the time from people that say, what piece of advice could you give me? What is the number one thing I need, if I want to succeed in Hollywood? And my answer is always the same. It always starts with, first and foremost, realize that you alone can't do shit. Like that, you can't do shit. Like, you can maybe make a movie in your house, or you can't even do that. I mean, with one person, how does one person go make a movie? I don't know. Someone's got to film, right? Like, starting with the basics. Somebody else has to film you. Like, it takes a team. And I've always tried to include people that I felt were better than me at specific things, for sure. For example, I'm not a detail person, and not meaning that I'm bad at details, but I'm just not, I'm more of a big picture thinker. And a funny example we always get, and Laura will die laughing because she'll tell you this is true. Like, I bought a chair for my office, right? And when it arrived, it was one of those chairs that you had to put together. And there was 150 nuts and bolts and all this shit and this paperwork. And I'm just looking at this chair in 30 pieces. And I'm like, man, I can't see this. Like, my brain doesn't see a finish line. It just seems like I'll be doing this forever. And years ago, I bought a chair for my desk and I put it together. And when I was done, there was half the bag still had nuts and bolts and screws. And Laura's like, well, what is this? I'm like, I don't know. It's just shit. She's like, no, what is this? I'm like, oh, it's stuff that's supposed to go to the chair here somewhere. And Laura's like, why is the bag filled with this shit? Like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, the chair's fine. I can sit in it. And she's like, wait a minute. So you put the chair together, and this half bag filled with nuts and bolts are supposed to be holding that chair together that you're sitting on. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, well, it's going to break in no time. I'm like, no, it'll be fine. And yeah, 3 months later, the thing's, falling apart. And so we actually kind of learned that it's not that I can't do it. It's that I'm so impatient and I have such a kind of big picture thought process that I become so frustrated with, having to slow down to do these things, that it just made more sense to have Laura do it, because Laura is very visual and she's very much a process detail person. And so the last chair I bought, I was like, Laura, you just got to do this. So she actually puts together my chairs or my desk like that, because anything like that drives me nuts. I hate process. I hate lines Laura and I cannot go grocery shopping together because my anxiety will go through the roof. Just having to deal with people and process of standing in a line and waiting, and it just drives me crazy. The thought of standing in a line as somebody one by one pulls one can out and then beeps it and then runs it down the conveyor and then the next one item. I'm like, oh God, can we just get to the part where we're at home and it's all put away, So and I'm only bringing this up because when I look for people to do things, I always look for people, as far as working with me. I look for people that are way better, when it comes to physical film production. Justin has such a shorthand with me. It's amazing because I can say to him what I want to see, what I want to film, how I want to film it. And there's a ton of process that goes involved with that. And I know the process, but I don't want to verbalize every step of the process because that just takes more process. That's time. I want to be able to say, hey, you know what I'm looking for? I want to do this, 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 and have someone go, gotcha, and do it. And Justin can do that. We've been doing this for so long now. He just knows my style, my tendencies. He knows how to do all that. And he's better at that than I am. Like physical film production, he is better than I am. And that's such a value to me. Thomas, what I love about Thomas is he's so like detailed, like when it comes to like a new artist or something. Like when Thomas is into a new artist, he will learn everything about them. Like where are they from? Where's their hometown? What, record label did they sign to? Who's their manager? Like he just has this natural thirst for all of the minutia. And that's so valuable. And I know it is because again, at times when I apply that to other things in life, I'm looking towards a big picture. And if you don't have someone that is, taking in the minutia to help you formulate the big picture, it's just incredibly important. The one thing that Thomas and I both see eye to eye on is we're both sticklers, like with schedule. But he's way better than I am. Like he's just, if he gives you a time that he's going to do something, he will do it at that time. You don't got to think about it. If he is going to do something or tells you he's going to do it, he just has that. You can, like I said, you could place bets on it, man. You could set your clocks on it, and that's so much better than I am. And it's so important when you're putting together a team to have people that are so good at these things that they do, And, Thomas is also always very aware of what's going on across the board in the entertainment business where, I'm guilty of kind of following the things that I'm into, but not having a grand awareness. Justin is hardly aware of anything that's going on in the entertainment business. He's more of a political guy. But they each, have their roles and they do their things so good. And Thomas is also, as a financial partner, look, the name of the game in filmmaking is, getting the most out of each dollar. It's about keeping costs as down, as low as you can. But you also have to have that person that, when you see an opportunity and it comes, Sir No Face would not have been made, period, would not exist if Thomas wasn't out with us and experiencing the things that we were seeing together as Craig was showing us this footage and it was all kind of playing out in front of us. There was a split-second decision that had to be made. There was things that had to happen right there. And unless you have that partner that can do that, that could be like, yes, I see this, and we're going to take this leap. Sir No Face wouldn't be here. Sir No Face wasn't here. So Deal wouldn't be here. So there's just so much to it that, I just have an amazing team. Kurt is so good. He knows how to handle. I'm a very excitable person. When I'm into something, I just get so into it. And I could also get very down about something too. That's why I have these theater of pain tattoos on my arm. And usually the theater of pain tattoos, one's crying sobbingly and one's smiling really bright. And mine on my arm, one is kind of grinning a little bit and the one looks a little somber. And what that is, it's a reminder to me to just keep it even keel. That most of the mistakes that I've made in my life have come when I've gotten too emotional. Too emotional. And Kurt is so good at like reeling me in and just being like, yo, nothing is as good or as bad as you think. Like, come back to earth here for a second. Let's figure this out. He's so good at negotiating where I'm not a great like negotiator. Like if I sit down across a table from somebody, and part of it is because I am that passionate artist that I so badly want to just like make the film. I want to get there. I want to do it. That process is so exciting to me that I learned when I was younger, more so than now, especially when I was younger, that a lot of times I was willing to give up too much just to get to the process. And, Kurt was always just like, hey, listen, man, get your worth, and let's do this, the best way that we can, because each one of these films is going to matter and it's going to propel you forward, and you had better be getting the most out of everything that we're doing, because you just can't rewind the clock, And he has been spectacular at that for as long as I've known him. He is, Kurt doesn't just get his deals, man. I mean, he gets his deals that kill, So he's incredible at what he does, and he knows how to manage me and help me. He's, like I said, he's better than me at that. And even in my own marriage, I mean, Laura is just so, God, she's amazing, man. She's amazing at all that stuff. She's just amazing at process and keeping a cool head and seeing the big picture and judging things for what they are and not being too emotional. And she's very conservative. She just slows me down. And I've been blessed with just this circle of people that, has consistently been there to just help, just help the dream, come alive and become our dream, and realize the things that I do better than them. And I guess that's the best way to put it, is they put me in a position where I can be the best at what I do good. That's the best way I can describe it. For the things that I do good, they make it where I can be the best that I can be at that in any given moment, any given situation. And if you don't have that, you're not going to make it out here. You're not going to make it in this business. It just is what it is. So to my team, thank you guys. We've gotten to this place, and this marks a new chapter. AGH Films is here, and I will never forget the run that AGH Television had, and what occurred over that time period. And again, I mentioned them earlier, but I also want to again thank, Susan and Earl Mick, and also Bob and Sharon and Natalie, the team that came behind me, and they financially supported me to make A Blood Red Sky, which was this completely experimental film that had so many potential downfalls, and they just trusted me to go after it and the concept, and it all worked, and they loved it, and I loved it. And again, Thomas came in at a time where we really needed him to help us with that project, and he did, and he supported us on the touring end of it as well. And it's just, but I want to thank that initial team. Again, another group, another team, and they've continued to be beyond my team with the Blood Red Sky. Susan is our merchandise person on the road. Sharon is my personal assistant when I travel anywhere, which is awesome. Literally her nickname is Mama, because she is a mother to me. She is I love her like a mother. And she's a great friend, but I love it. I love her like family, And Bob just helps with anything. Bob's always been what do you need help with? I got your back. And Bob is one of my best friends, just like my bro, So that's what's cool about this too, is that this group of people, this team, this family, everybody believed. And, a couple kids, like I said, Justin and I, 2 kids from Persia, Iowa. I've got to a place now where I can have an idea for a movie, and there's nothing stopping it from my brain to the computer to 1 billion people now. And that is truly magical. Having said that, I know this is a storytelling podcast, and I promised I would share a few stories, and I'll answer a few questions too. One of the questions I got, this was in the past in general, was what is one of my favorite stories that taught me the biggest lesson? And I knew when I got this question that I wanted to answer it during this podcast, because I could tell you a situation that, man, it taught me a lot from top to bottom. When we were raising money for the private public, the first film I ever made. Now, back then, it was a different process. There was no HD film yet. Everything was on film. We had Dana Altman, Robert Altman's grandson, believe it or not, loved the script and wanted to make the film and signed on to produce it. And, we had to raise $500,000 Now, this is back in 1998, before I'd never made a film in my life. Justin was working on Twister, like in a very, he was like parking cars and stuff. He wasn't like any key position. We had no experience whatsoever. And I just felt like, well, that's not a horrible thing. That could be a good thing. And just basically be honest with people. I don't have the experience, but I'm going to people who do, like Dana, and I have them, in my corner based off this script and their excitement. And that's just what I'm going to do. And from there, I'm just going to start meeting people and doing everything I can do to get people excited. And the goal was, if someone wanted to put $1,000 in, we would take that. If someone wanted to invest $50,000, we'd take that. And Dana, put together this offering package. We knew nothing about how that was done. And basically, he was like, this is how you sell people. This is what you tell them. This is what you give them. Then they call me and I'll handle it. Well, we didn't build any, salary for us or anything like that into any of this raising money at the time, because we just didn't know we could. We didn't know we could. We didn't know what we were doing. And man, like the first round of getting money, I had to get to Omaha because we had a set date that this development financing had to be in. And so I had to pick all the money up and then get to Omaha to give it to Dana to put it into an account so he could set up, all the legal stuff that had to be, all the T's crossed and the I's dotted and all that stuff, and the legal entity that was going to handle the funds of, the private public. And I was just, I've never been so broke because there was no money. Like, there was no money. And at the time I was in 35-inch mutter and I was part-time hanging metal siding, but I couldn't do that for very long because I had to meet with people to raise the money. And so, I was pretty much living off of Laura's salary, which is just like her second year teaching, and she's a school teacher. She's making, I'm talking $14,000 a year at the time, guys. $14,000, okay? And I'm making nothing. If 35-inch mutter is playing, maybe $500 a month, if not, nothing, So at the time I was just making nothing. But I had raised on my end $150,000. So I was like, okay, I got to go around and pick this all up and have it to Dana, by the following Monday. So it was Saturday, and everybody all week long, I said, get your money together and all the people. And I went and I met 8 different people, and they were a little short. It was like, I think I got like 110 of it came in, and the rest was promised the following week. And I hop in my car and I realize, A, I'm starving. So I check my bank account and I have negative $1.20. But I got to get to Omaha. So I get in my car and I realize, oh shit, I have no gas. So I don't know what I'm going to do, but I got to get to Omaha to give Dana this money. So I drive to the gas station and I'm sitting there at the pump and I'm thinking, what can I do? What can I do? So I decide, well, I'm just going to, see if the good heart of this person working at the gas station, maybe they'll just understand my situation and they'll let me just borrow some gas and then I'll figure out. So I actually go inside and I tell this guy, the whole story and what's going on. But if I can get to Omaha, then I have family there. And I promise you, I will come back, man, and I'll give you the money for the gas, that you let me borrow. And, he stops and he pauses for like probably 4 or 5 seconds. And he's just like, fuck out of here with that, man. He basically just says, yeah, fuck off, dude. No, like, that's not how this works. I'm like, no, you can't help me. He's like, I cannot help you out, man. I'm like, okay, God damn it. So I go back, I get in my car, and I start driving home, and it just hits me like, you can't go home. You got to get to Omaha. I'm like, oh, Jesus. So I turn back around, and I go all the way to the highway, and I pull in this little come and go. It's what it's called, come and go. And I pull in, and I'm just like, man, I can't just steal gas, can I? Like, my dad taught me when I was young. I'm like, I told you the story about my dad and just stealing those stamps, and it just weighed heavily on me. And I'm like, but I gotta get to Omaha. So I was like, fuck it. I just gassed up and just bounced. Just bounced, man. And the whole time on my way to Omaha, I am like, it is killing me. It is crushing me. That it was like $10 worth of gas. Just enough to get me home. But it's crushing me. Because I'm no thief, man. I was like, this is mind blowing. I have, over $100,000 in my pocket. And I don't have $10 for gas. It was the realization of that moment that I am doing something incredibly wrong. So I get to Omaha and I give Dana, the money. And I'm like, listen, dude, I'm broke, man. Like, I got nothing. I need money for gas. I need money for food. Like, all this money is from my friends that I've raised and family. Like I need your help. And he had this kind of like, well, not my issue fucking, approach. And I was just like, what is going on? Like, why doesn't he care? And so through conversation, we start talking about what he's going to do with the money. And he talks about that he's basically going to pay his bills for his studio for that month because they're using the studio as the main production house. And that could be line itemed. And I'm like, so wait a minute, dude. I'm like, I don't have $10, but you can pay, $7,000 a month basically for this, all your bills. And he's like, well, they're not my bills. They're bills to make this movie. And it was my first kind of insight into the fucking dirty pool that gets shot like in this business. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe what is happening right now. Like, I literally don't have money to eat right now. I'm freaking out because I don't have any money to eat. I'm literally freaking out. So I start bitching and kind of throwing a fit. He ends up giving me like $5 to go get tacos. And the next day comes around, and our lead actor, Jason, comes into town, and I picked him up. And on the way to the set, he wanted to get pizza. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'll take him to Old Chicago. Remember, I have no money. So I took him to Old Chicago, and on the way there, my friend Clint and Justin are with me, and they come and join me too. And it's just me, Justin, Clint, and Jason. And I don't order anything. I say there, I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm cool. I already ate. I'm fine, just because I don't have any money, and I don't want to buy anything. And Jason orders like a big pizza, like a couple liters of soda, and Justin, in the middle of it, is like, hey, man, my grandma just called me, and she needs me to mow her lawn. And he bounced, and I'm like, what? Your grandma called you need to mow the lawn? Like, what is going on right now? So I'm just like watching Clint just chow down, and in the middle of it, Jason goes, to the bathroom. And I lean over to Clinton. I'm like, hey, man, just so you know, I think Jason is thinking we're going to pay for this. I'm like, so if you got a few bucks I can borrow to cover this. And he was like, dude, I ain't got any money. I was going to ask you. I'm like, hold on, man. I'm like, why are you eating then? He's like, I don't know. I thought production was going to pay for it or something. I'm like, so you got no money and you're chowing down right now. And I go, I didn't order anything, dude. I'm not drinking water. I got nothing. And he's like, shit, dude, I'm sorry. I got no money. And I'm like, well, what's up with Justin? Why did he go? And he goes, I don't know. I just leaned over and asked him for money. And then he left right after. So what had happened was Justin had already realized, he knew I had no money. When Clinton said, hey, do you have money? Justin realized there was no money. There was no money. And we had the lead actor there with us who's thinking, he's just showing up to his first day on the set, and he's thinking he's on a movie set, So Justin actually called his grandma, who used to pay him to mow her lawn, and he basically said, Grandma, I'm in a real tough situation. If I come mow your lawn, can I get $50 from you? And she says yes, and he's trying to mow the lawn in time before we get done eating to make his way back to pay for the pizza that none of us can afford, that we didn't order. And again, I'm like sitting here going, oh my God, what the fuck am I doing? Like, this is insane, man. And he didn't make it back in time. And I ended up saying to Jason, hey, man, right now we're just working out some money shit. I ain't got any cash on me, but I'll hit you back, which I did. I ended up paying him back. And I also, just so you guys know, I made my way back to Des Moines 2 days later, in which I went back to that gas station. And I gave the guy the money for the gas and apologized. And he was super cool. And I would have taken my medicine, man. I said, listen, if you got to call the cops, I get it. I'm like, but I was just in a tough spot, dude. And I'm not a thief, man. So here's the money for it. If you need me to. And he was actually super cool. He couldn't believe that I brought the money back. He was like, I can't even believe that. Wow. It's like, I thought we just got taken. And I'm just like, no, man. And I guess I'm bringing this up, guys, because each of these events that seem horrific in the moment, it goes back to a story my dad once told me, and, we're sharing, Father's Day just went by, and I remember this amazing story that this conversation we had about, the pain and the struggle and the suffering along the way, that's the real reward in life. That in those moments, I learned, I truly learned, the thing about, pain and grief and anxiety, they're tremendous teachers. They're tremendous teachers. Very few people learn anything off of, happiness, parties, and good times. Through the gas and go thing with Dana and the money, I realized that, at 19 years old, I had not done my homework. I should have went into that, knowing that I need to be taken care of. So before I ever start raising any kind of money, what is my line item? What are the averages? What's the median? You know what I mean? What's garden variety? Because I don't want to do anything that isn't industry standard, but there's got to be something set aside in development for a producer. And I didn't do it, and Dana knew it, so he took advantage of it. And I should have realized and learned, I should have known that going in, but I learned that. I learned that, people are not going to look for ways to get you paid. You need to take care of you, And the situation with Jason coming in and landing, it's kind of the same thing. I realized that, artists that come in, they have an expectation. And you've got to be able to meet that expectation. And if I couldn't personally meet it, I should have already taken steps to arrange to make sure that if he had any initial wants, that they were covered. I'm just bringing all this up because, again, these are the priceless things that you learn with each failure. And failing is a part of getting good at something. The times that I have failed editing, where I've tried something, an effect or something, or, it just didn't work. It just came out weird. It's a billion times that's happened, to finally get to a place where I know what works well. So how do you become a good editor? Well, you become a bad one first. And for a long time, you're really bad until you learn what sucks and how to fix it. And it's kind of like that with, getting to a place where you can make films that are good enough that a big company sees value in you and wants to give you a deal. And that's really what this overall process has been about, is the ability to use your failures as stepping stones. If you didn't reach your goal, you want to be closer to it regardless. And, my dad one time, I was talking about how I couldn't wait for college. I was out in the garage talking to him. And I was just saying, I must have been 12 years old at the time. And I was just saying, I just can't wait till I'm a grown up. And he's like, why are you always in such a hurry to be a grown up? I was like, well, shit, Dad, you don't got to ask anybody to do anything. And he's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, but yeah, I can't imagine that. I can't imagine waking up and being like, I can just go do what I want today. And he was like, yeah, but you don't understand. It'll be different when you reach that point, because you're going to have so many things that you have to do that your day is now taken up by necessity. He's like, right now it's a beautiful time for you. You don't realize it. He's like, responsibility is a great burden. It is a great burden. He said that to me many times. Responsibility is a great burden. And it is. It is. And when you're a kid, you don't have any real thing. I mean, man, when I think back to when I was in high school, My life consisted of playing baseball, getting laid, and yeah, just being a jerk off with my friends, just fucking off on the weekend. I mean, like that was it. Like life was so simple back then. And on the way to this point today where we're at, it's been a long collection of having these little points of failure that make you sharper and sharper and sharper, and then you start having successes. And then those little successes lead you onto bigger opportunities. And then if you're lucky, you're able to just, keep achieving those opportunities. But more often than not, when bigger opportunities come, there's going to be some failures that you have. Until you get so good at those things that you have a bigger opportunity again. And eventually the opportunities get to a place where they're meaningful. They're meaningful, to your life, to the life of others. And one of the things he said to me is he said, when you finally get to a place in life where you're really, excited about where you got, you're going to look back and you're going to love these moments that you thought were struggles. Because he's like, that's the good stuff. I'll never forget him said, that's the good stuff. I'm like, what is? And he was like, the struggle. He was like, when you're starving, when you're just eating peanut butter and you're just still finding a way to do it. I was like, huh. I'm like, so it was like that for you? And he's like, oh, before I got burned, I was in the Air Force? Oh, God. He goes, yes, definitely. He was like, before I even went to the Air Force, and I had your brother, your mom and I have literally dug through the couch looking for pennies, to buy some coffee, and so we could, sit down and have our government cheese with our coffee. And I'm like, holy shit, government cheese and coffee, what are you talking about, And he just basically, the point of the story was, man, the struggle is the reward. That you're going to look back and you're going to, remember those stories where you thought the world was ending, it was just so horrible. And you're going to look back and realize that it wasn't even that dramatic. You just made it that dramatic, and through that you learned how to do things better, and you learned how to eventually become, good at what you do, and you start getting places. But that's the beauty of it. And I saw that with film. I could tell you so many stories of Justin and I, even my old band. I can tell you so many stories, like the top ramen days, you know what I mean? Where you're just really dirt poor, man, and just struggling and thinking, man, there'll never be a day where I get to where I'm going. It's just too far away. And yeah, man, that stuff really is valuable. It really is valuable. The reward really is the journey and the struggles along the way. And I'm so thankful for those struggles, man, because there was a time where my first film, The Private Public, was just a painful blur because it was nothing that I wanted it to be. It turned out totally wrong. It just didn't, it was not what I had prayed for. But now I look back at it in this endearing way that, hey, we made our first film, got some names to be involved with it, and even though the deal screwed us to no end, we did get a deal from Showtime, which is no small feat. And all these stories of, starving, starving and not having the money to buy a 59-cent taco as I give Dana Altman $100,000, and having Justin, fake off, in mid-lunch, or take off to, go mow his grandma's lawn. So he could totally, hopefully get back and fake like he had money and he could pay for lunch now, and just, like I said, all these learning processes, you just, over time, you wouldn't take any of those things back, but in the moment, they're incredibly painful, so I'm glad we did it the hard way, man. And I guess that's the best thing I could say is, in no way do I feel like I am there or that I've made it, or am I, content in no way. But I know we got somewhere special today. I do know that. And that makes all of those events in the past special. And now that AGH Television has become AGH Films, did it hurt that my father wasn't here for me to sign that deal and say, Pops, this dream we had, we finally accomplished it? Yes, it hurt to not have him around for that. But what's beautiful is that AGH Films represents something brand new, a new chapter. And AGH Television is a closed chapter. And the memories associated with everything we did under the name AGH Television will always be special, because its value is measured by the weight of the memories that I associate with AGH Television and that incredible run to get to AGH Films. So that's it, guys. Thank you all for being there. To my team, thank you all. To everybody, man, that had a role in this. Magic, Get some people in a room together that believe, and magic can happen. So where are we going to go from here? It's going to get exciting. It's going to get bigger and better. And, I promise you the best films we've ever made are to come. And you're now not going to have to wait, years after you see trailers to see the movie. It's all going to happen. Craig's story, the world is going to see it. There's still one more film in that can. There's still Paleface to go. So that just became more possible now. There's just so many things are possible now, and it's because of you guys. So thank you all for your love and your support. AGH Films starts today, and you'll hear more about that soon in regard to some new t-shirts as well, and some new hats that are AGH Films, and as we have more info on the release dates of the movies coming, we will let you know as well. So thank you all. I will be back again with another episode of the In a Crowded Room podcast very soon. Much love, everybody. All the best. Have a good night. Bye-bye.